Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the Compassionate, the Most Merciful. To all of our viewers out there, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. And welcome back again to the rationale, the intersection of faith and reason, where our guest is our beloved Sheikh, Dr. Jaffar Idris. Dr. Jaffar, as always, it's a pleasure to be with you, sir. And thank you for joining us one more time here again. Last time, we talked about the concept of predestiny or predetermination or foreknowledge of God.
Yes.
And we spoke about the will of both God and humans as well. I think it would be very natural for us at this point to discuss the freedom of man and what is the Islamic view with regard to this topic.
Yeah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Many people, of course, now the freedom has become a very popular topic, especially politically. But sometimes, especially in the West, people talk about freedom. They attribute to human beings freedom, or they want them to have freedom, which they cannot have at all because of the way they are constituted, because of their nature. The freedom about which they speak in the absolute sense applies only to God. God is the only free one. He is his freedom is absolute because he has full knowledge, or he's all-knowing, he is all-powerful, and therefore whatever he wills will be the case. This does not apply, of course, to human beings. So
in that sense, we are limited.
We are limited
because of the limitations of our attributes.
Our especially knowledge and power. So because God has full knowledge and all-powerful, he is the one who has absolute freedom. And you find this in the Quran, فَعَالٌ لِمَا يُرِيدُ. I think we mentioned this verse before.
Sure. The doer of whatever he wants.
Whatever he wants. The freedom of created things, whether they be human beings or angels or devils or whatever, is limited.
Sheikh, I'm sorry, but before you go, when we speak of the freedom of God, even though it's absolute freedom, is it fair, or is it not fair to also say that it is accompanied with both compassion and justice on the part of God?
Yes, of course. This is a good point. Sometimes people forget. Even when we say God does what he wants, that doesn't mean that his actions are haphazard. His actions must be seen in the context of his other attributes. Yes.
Which
is true. So he will not do something that is not compatible with his being merciful, with his being wise, with and the other attributes that can relate to such actions.
So when the Quran says that Wallahu yaf'alu ma yasha,
yes,
or these
yes,
other verses that you have mentioned,
yes,
it is a declaration of the absolute freedom of God, but not necessarily, like you said, it's not, nothing happens haphazardly.
No, because you remember the hadith, إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَتَبَ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ الرَّحْمَةِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided that he would be merciful. God does not do everything that he can do. He has the power to be unjust.
Sure.
But he's not unjust, and he is praised because of this. As one of our theologians said, if he was not able to do except that which is good, he would not have been praised for doing it.
Sure.
You praise someone for doing something which the opposite of which he could have done.
Sure.
Other alternatives.
So he's not good because his inability to do otherwise.
Evil.
He is good by choice.
Yes, he chooses to do good. All created things, as I said, necessarily, the freedom of created things is necessarily limited. because they are created by God, they are under control of their creator, so they cannot be absolutely free. Their knowledge is limited, their power is limited, and therefore they cannot do what they choose. They can have the freedom and the knowledge to do something, to will to do something, but not everything that they do will be the case. They will be the case, because it is left to God whether to allow what they chose, what they willed to be the case or not. So their freedom is not absolute.
And I think in that case, that's when a verse like إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون. That whenever he decides about any matter, it is for him to say be, and immediately it is. But obviously that's not the case with us humans.
This is true. So even a person who doesn't believe in the Creator and doesn't believe in the reasons that you have just given, still should believe that the freedom of human beings is limited, because he can see that your freedom is only within the laws of nature, and within also what other people think of what you want to do or what you want to say. So even when I raise my hand, now I raise it according to the laws of physics and biology and so on. I cannot do what I choose to do. I cannot now decide to fly. I'm a human being, and I am made in such a way that even if I had the strongest will to fly, I will not be able to fly. So our freedom is limited by the laws of nature that govern our actions. It is also limited, as I have just said, by what other people by the freedom of the actions of other people. I cannot do everything that I want to do, because there are other people who would object to what I do, or who would prevent me from doing what I will to do, because it is not in their interest or because it is harmful to them. So my freedom is necessarily limited. Sometimes it is even limited just by the customs and traditions and so on of a society. No one forces a person to abide by these traditions and so on, but if he doesn't do, he will be isolated. Yes. So freedom of human beings is limited. So when we say that someone is free, we are saying that he is free within this context. Now, but he is free to do good or to do evil within this, to accept the truth or to reject it. As you read in the Quran, فَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيُؤْمِنْ وَمَنْ شَاءَ فَلْيَكْفُرْ. Let him who will accept the truth, and let him who will deny the truth. This is a very clear verse that belief is a matter of choice, and then a person has the power and the will either to accept the truth or to refuse. God does not enforce it upon any person. But a person will be responsible for the choice he makes, whether in front of his Creator or even in front of other people. One cannot say, I killed someone because I am free. So I have the freedom to kill him, so I killed him. Society might not be able to prevent a person from killing someone else, but they will punish him for doing that act, which is done with freedom. If it is not, if it is done accidentally, then the consequences will be different. And this is what we do in everyday life. If you press upon someone's foot, say, and he says, then you say, "I'm sorry, I did it," he will forgive you. Sure. But if he sees that you did this on purpose, there will be a difference. So even in our daily life as human beings, we make a distinction between what a person does willfully and what he does absent-mindedly or ignorantly or so.
And we're only responsible for the actions that we willingly have pursued or have taken.
Even in, I said that even in everyday life, this is to a great extent, this is how we treat people.
Would that be what the Prophet ﷺ meant when he said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّةِ?
Yes.
Deeds are truly judged by the intention of the doer of these deeds.
This is in front of the Creator, and this is how people treat each other. If someone does something, as I have just said, some philosophers say, apparently, two actions can be very much similar. If someone puts his hand in your pocket and picks your wallet, but he's your friend. If another person does the same thing, he will be described as a thief, but not the first person. This in spite of the fact that the actions are very similar, the same in fact, identical. The only difference is with the intention of the person. And that's why you would not punish your friend for doing, I hope.
Well, it depends on how much they took from me.
But you will not treat a thief or a person who is not known to you the same way as you treat your friend. Sometimes this freedom is lost involuntarily. Someone else, some external powers, impose something on you that makes you lose this freedom. The worst example,
the freedom to choose.
Yes, of course. The worst example is slavery. If some people, if they enslave other human beings, for no reason, just like what happened to people in Africa by the Europeans and the Americans and so on. These are innocent people. They were taken and made slaves. When a person is made a slave, of course he loses much of his freedom.
And we
he
will
will be asked to do what his master tells him to do, and to abstain for doing what the master tells him.
And at that point, he has lost his this will of choice, and also his God-given right, the fact that he was created as a
free person.
Yes, please hold on to that thought. We would like to go back to it. We will take a short break, and we will be back. So please stay tuned with us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and thank you for joining us again here in the Rationale, the intersection of faith and reason, with our Sheikh here, Dr. Jaffar Idris. Dr. Jaffar, you were talking earlier about how people lose this God-given freedom to them, and you mentioned the case of slavery, where people are stripped from that.
Yes, I said sometimes they lose it because of external forces, like dictators and some other political leaders. They strip people of their, as you said, of their freedom. But sometimes they do it also voluntarily.
People give up
their
freedom in that sense.
Voluntarily. And I gave the example of people who are, we can give the example of people who are leaders, not only dictators, but even people who are leaders who are elected. Elected. And then people change their minds about their policies. But there is nothing they can do. They have to follow them and to obey their orders. Voluntary giving up of some of the freedom can be done for a good reason or a bad reason. A bad reason is when a person decides to follow a leader or a sheikh or so blindly. Whatever he is told, he will believe, and he will act according to what he is told. This person is no longer free, because he doesn't give himself even the chance to think about what he is told, whether it is good or whether it is bad. So that's why it is called blind following.
And is this where, I guess, the Prophet ﷺ forbade when he said, لا يكن أحدكم إمعا?
And in the Quran, you find so many verses about the people who deviated just because they followed their leaders. And God did not accept that as an excuse, because He gave you the freedom to think and to decide for yourself. You decided to
give up that right
and follow
somebody else,
this person.
Thinking. And that is blameworthy.
Of course. And there is no excuse for it. You can't say, I did it because my leader told me, or my sheikh told me, or a certain alim told me, and so on. If you decided to follow that person, absolutely. But if you did not decide this, and sometimes you follow this advice, sometimes you follow that advice, and you think, and you make mistakes, then there is no problem in that.
Yeah, I'm getting the sense that this is not only a responsibility, but it's also a right that must be practiced. Meaning that this freedom that God has given us, it must be practiced. It's not only a right that we ought to claim, but it has to be put into action
Especially
as well.
when it comes to fundamental matters of truth and falsehood about important things, like whether a prophet is a true prophet or not, whether there is a creator or not, whether this matter is against correct understanding of religion or so. When it comes to fundamental matters, even when it comes to matters that are fundamental to you as a person, if someone, because he is the leader, tells you to kill yourself or to kill your children or to kill an innocent person, then if you do that, you will not be excused, because God gave you this power to decide for yourself. So if you voluntarily forgo that, then you'll be responsible.
Sheikh, if you don't mind, just going on more on this point, and that is, in many cases, people confuse their right to choose versus their freedom to think. Meaning that I go to the market and I see that there are many products, and because I have this freedom to choose which product I prefer, we think that is the ultimate freedom, or these are the ways to practice our freedom.
But do you think that a person would choose without thinking at all when it comes to these worldly matters?
Well, what surprises me about what you said is that, especially when it comes to fundamental issues, and it seems like we are so consumed practicing our freedom in being good consumers, picking which products we want. But when it comes to fundamental issues, it seems that there is this mental laziness of people wanting to...
Yes, and this is, according to the Quran, this is one of the main causes of deviation, this following blindly of leaders. Especially if this is made in the name of religion. There's a verse in the Quran which says, إنكم كنتم تأتوننا عن اليمين. You used to come to us from Yamin. Yamin means right. But in the interpretation of the verse, they say from the side in which we trust you, and that is the religious side. And if someone wants really to deviate, to deceive people, then the best choice for him is to deceive them in the right of something that is good, and that is religion. So he distorts the religion and makes them think that this is what God is telling you, and so they follow him. But they will not be excused. They will not be excused.
And people think that because somebody is invoking the name of God in their slogans, that makes it godly, or somehow it stamps it with nobility and what have you.
And sometimes this voluntary giving up of the right to think and to choose can be done for political purposes. And the example that is given is political parties. If a person becomes a member of a political party, even in democratic countries, then sometimes they do things which they believe are not right. But they think that if they don't follow, they will be expelled from the party, or they will, and the party will suffer, or so. So they are not really free. They are not really free. One philosopher writing about democracy, he said, and he gave an example of one British leader, and who didn't like that so many people of his party in parliament were criticizing and talking, and so he didn't like this. He said that, addressing them, he said, every dog has the right to bark only once. If you continue to bark, we will take off your license as a dog. And so this can happen, and that's why people used to call, especially in the communist parties, they used to call them fellow travelers. They just follow, but they will not be excused for this.
You seem to speak a lot about, you allude to it in a sense of social pressure, that sometimes people give in to that type of societal pressure, and in the Quran, like you said, that the fact that inna wajadna aba'ana ala ummah, that we found our forefathers doing this, therefore part.
Yes, but these are not doing it because there is pressure. No, because they are just following. They think that this is the best way to the best way to know the truth is just to follow your forefathers, ancestors, or leaders, and so on. So this is what I call the bad motive for giving up your freedom. There is sometimes a good reason, and you don't give up your freedom, but you limit yourself, and that is why when you follow the dictates of a true religion, it says don't do this, don't do that, and here you are not given any choice. I mean, theoretically you are given the choice, but you decide to always do what you are told to do. But there is, as we said before, here there is a rational reason for doing this, because you have been convinced that this is what your Creator is telling you to do. So you don't now think about disobeying Him because this is your right to do whatever you think. So this is a good reason. Sometimes There is a good reason even for following what other human beings like you tell you. And that is when you see or you think that what they are telling you is good. For example, every one of us now has to follow the law of the at least traffic light. If the light is red, you stop. Why do you stop? Because you were told to stop. But you convinced yourself that this is, if I don't stop and if everyone else doesn't stop, then there will be accidents and so on and so on. So freedom to act does not mean that you always act according to your own thinking, or perhaps this can be also called your thinking. But it does not mean that you don't abide by any law. There is no contradiction between your actions being willful and your binding yourself with the laws, whether they be religious laws or laws of your country.
You willingly chose to restrain yourself and limit, but that in itself was really a result of
your thinking,
of a choice.
No.
And I think I heard a beautiful quote once that says, there are two types of freedom, a false freedom and a true freedom, where people think that freedom is doing what you want versus the real freedom is doing what you ought to do. Sheikh Jaffar, as always, it's been a pleasure having you on this program, and we look forward to more of this with you, inshallah, in the coming episodes. And thank you for joining us here today. And until the next time that we would hope you join us as well, we say so long and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.